You know how every year the government drops these huge reports just packed with numbers and official sounding jargon? Well, what do they actually mean for people's lives? Today, we're going to cut right through all that noise and go inside the annual report from Nepal's Ministry of Labor. We're going to find out what it really tells us about jobs, migration, and safety for millions of Nepalis. Okay, so this building right here, this is pretty much ground zero. This is where it all happens. From inside these walls in Singhadarbar, decisions get made that ripple out and affect millions of lives. From a farmer in a village looking for local work to the hundreds of thousands of Nepalis getting on a plane for a job abroad. Think of it as the nerve center for the country's entire labor force. And that really brings us to the core question we're tackling today, right? When you get past all the policy speak and the budget lines, what did this ministry actually get done for the average person this past year? So let's jump in, break down the official numbers, and see what's really going on. All right, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's just quickly get on the same page about what this ministry is supposed to do. I mean, what's their fundamental job? Let's take a quick look at what they're actually tasked with doing. So, in a nutshell, their job is huge. They're meant to manage the entire world of work. As you can see, that means everything from creating jobs here at home and training people with the right skills to making sure workers are safe and their rights are protected. And of course, they have to manage the absolutely massive reality of foreign employment and run the social security system. It's a huge, complex mission that really touches almost every single family in the country. Okay, so keeping all that in mind, let's start with that first big piece of the puzzle, creating jobs right here in Nepal. How'd they do? Let's find out. So the government's main weapon in this fight is the Prime Minister Employment Program, and you'll often hear it called PMEP. This whole program is designed to give some minimum level of employment to unemployed people right in their local communities. It's their number one tool for trying to tackle joblessness within the country. Okay, get ready for this number because it really shows you the scale of the problem. This year, almost 800,000 people officially registered as unemployed through this PMEP system. They all signed out looking for work. I mean, that is a huge, huge number. It gives you a real sense of just how deep the unemployment challenge is. And here's the other side of that story. So out of all those people, that almost 800,000 we just saw, just under 55,000 of them were actually given a job through the program this past fiscal year. And wow, this chart really just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you have that massive, towering bar of people registered as unemployed. And right next to it, that much, much smaller bar of people who actually got jobs. You don't even need the exact numbers. Just looking at the size of those two bars tells you the whole story. But wait, there's another really important layer to this. Yet the report says that the work they got, it only lasted for an average of 53 days. So what does that tell us? It tells us the PMEP, right now, is acting more like a temporary relief measure, kind of like a Band-Aid, not a long-term cure for creating stable, sustainable careers. All right, so let's shift gears now and look at the other massive part of the ministry's job, managing foreign employment. And you got to remember, with that huge gap in jobs at home that we just saw, this is an absolute lifeline for hundreds of thousands of Nepalese and a massive engine for the whole national economy. And the numbers here, they're just mind-boggling. In just one fiscal year, which runs from about mid-July to mid-July in Nepal, the ministry issued more than 839,000 labor permits. That includes new ones and renewals. Think about that for a second. That's the incredible volume of people relying on this system. Now, when you slice that number up by gender, you see a really stark difference. As you can see, it's overwhelmingly men who got over 744,000 permits. That's nearly 89% of the total, compared to just over 94,000 for women. So how do you even begin to manage that many people? Well, the ministry came up with a new motto for how it delivers its services. Faceless, paperless, Kara, cashless. This is a huge signal that they're trying to move away from the old-school, slow bureaucracy and towards a modern, digital-first way of doing things. Okay, so that sounds cool, but what does faceless, paperless, cashless actually mean for people? Well, it means the entire process of getting a labor permit from your first application all the way to renewing it is now done completely online. For workers, especially if you're living in a rural area, this is a game changer. It means you don't have to make that long, expensive trip to Kathmandu anymore. No more standing in long lines, and a much smaller chance of getting tangled up in red tape or having to deal with middlemen. So, making the paperwork easier is one thing, and that's a big deal. But maybe the most important job the ministry has is protecting these workers when they're so far from home. So let's look at some numbers about worker security and welfare. And these next few numbers, they really paint a sobering picture of just how risky it can be. The reality of working abroad can be incredibly tough and sometimes tragic. This year, the ministry had to provide financial help to the families of 1,250 workers who tragically died while working overseas. This money comes from a special welfare fund that all workers contribute to, and it's a critical safety net, of course, for families who've just lost their main provider. And it's not just deaths either. Financial aid also went to another 698 workers who got severely sick or suffered really bad injuries on the job. And we're talking about injuries that can leave them unable to work and provide for their families, sometimes forever. But the support isn't just about tragedy, it's also about investing in the future, in the next generation. The ministry handed out over 51 million rupees in scholarships to almost 4,000 children of migrant workers. This helps make sure their education doesn't get thrown off track just because their parent is working abroad. Now, this number, this is a big one. This is about fighting back. When workers get exploited or their contracts aren't honored, the ministry is supposed to step in. This year, they managed to settle more than 3,700 official complaints. And look at this. They recovered and gave back over 401 million rupees directly to the workers who were wronged. Okay, so we've seen some real progress, right? Especially with going digital and helping workers. But the report is also really honest about the huge challenges that are still there. So, what's next? What does the path forward actually look like? And yeah, the road ahead is definitely not easy. I mean, first off, there's that massive domestic job gap we saw earlier with the PMEP program. That's priority number one. Then there's the really tricky challenge of helping workers who come back home. How do you make sure the new skills and the money they've earned actually help build the country's economy? On top of all that, they have to figure out how to get more people into the social security system and deal with the complicated world of international diplomacy to better protect workers. The work is clearly a long way from being done. So when you step back and look at the whole report, it's really a story of two sides, isn't it? You see real, tangible progress in modernizing the system and providing a safety net for workers. But at the same time, you see this massive, persistent challenge of creating enough good jobs at home. The ministry is wrestling with how to manage Nepal's most valuable asset, its people, in a world that's changing incredibly fast. The progress is real, but so are the gaps. Which leads us to the final and maybe most important question of all. Faced with all of this, what's the ministry's next move?